Welcome to today where we're going to learn how to make Swiss roll, super aerated Swiss roll, and it's got zero fat in it, it's a fatless sponge. So first things first, you need your Swiss roll tin that you're planning to make it in. Should be some sort of baking tray with a little bit of height at the side. Doesn't have to be quite as big as this, but generally about sort of 30 centimeters long. You don't want a huge one, otherwise your Swiss roll is going to be super thin. You then need to get a piece of baking paper if you have one. If you have baking paper, it just makes it so much easier to remove your Swiss roll from the tin. If you don't have baking paper, you're going to really need to either spray the bottom of your tin with spray oil or get some butter and put it on your fingers and rub it all over so that you grease the tin. Otherwise your sponge is going to get stuck in your tin when you try and turn it out, and then it will rip, and then it will be really difficult to roll your sponge back up. So really important that you grease the bottom of your tray. What I've been doing here is I've been cutting each of the corners so they go diagonally into the center, because then when I place my piece of greaseproof paper over the top, it's super easy to get it in those corners as it just overlaps each other. And then I can use my fingernails to just go right into the corner of the tin, and then it's really well placed, ready for my mixture. So in my mixing bowl here, I've got my 3 eggs and my 75 grams of sugar, and I'm going to need to whisk it. We're going to aerate this mixture. We're going to make the proteins in the egg stretch and trap the air that we're mechanically adding into the mixture. We want it to have the consistency of shaving foam, so it's going to take probably a good 8 minutes of solid whisking. So let's get started. So we've been whisking this for about 7 or 8 minutes, and as you can see, it's much thicker. And if I lift my whisk up, it's beginning to get peaks. I'm just going to whisk it for another minute or two, see if I can get it to hold that shape for a little bit longer. So whisked it for a couple more minutes just to get that really thick consistency. It's really important you don't stir this or knock any of the air out of it, because it's all aerated. All that air has been trapped in a foam in the egg. So mechanical aeration to create the foam, or the foam needed for the base of your sponge cake for your Swiss roll. Next stage, you need to add your flour, but it has to be done in a specific way. So if you've got a sieve in your 75 grams of flour. If you haven't got a sieve, you need to just gently scatter the flour over the top. If you've got a sieve, add it in all over the top of your mixture. So the sieve also adds air because it traps it in between each layer, each particle of flour, and also it just gets rid of any lumps. Now, to mix in the flour, we have to fold it in. So you need a metal tablespoon, and you need to draw the number 8 in your mixture. So very gently. If you just mix it all together, then what happens is you knock all of the air out of the eggs, or the egg and sugar mixture that you've just spent 8 or 9 minutes whisking in, and then you will get a flat sponge for your Swiss roll, and it will not roll as well. So we're just drawing the number 8, and we're just gently working it our way through until all of that flour is combined. So I'm just running my spoon around the edge to make sure the flour is mixed in, and then through the middle in the number 8. So I'm drawing the number 8 with my spoon. Another way you can fold in flour is by going round the outside and cutting through the middle. Round the outside, cutting through the middle. I prefer drawing the number 8, but it's entirely up to you. So you want to keep going until you can't see any more flour in your mixture. But the problem is, quite often the flour collects on the bottom. So you need to sort of pull it back and check you've got no flour on the bottom of your bowl as best you can. And if you think you've got flour, just keep folding it in for another 30 seconds or so. But it is important to not over fold it, because otherwise you will knock that air out. So once you are pretty sure that you've mixed in the flour and it's completely folded in and you can't see any stuck to the bottom of the bowl, you can transfer it over. Still a little bit of flour left on my spoon. You can transfer it over to your baking tin. So we're going to just gently pour it in to your baking tin. And then use the spoon to gently push in any mixture that is left in the bowl so that you've got everything in there. Really please, because I can't see too much flour at the bottom of the bowl, which is very good news. So get all of your mixture in. Once you've added your mixture to the tray, it's really important you now don't use a spoon or a spatula to push it down. You're just going to push all of the air out that you've just spent ages getting in there. So instead, you just need to gently move the mixture around in your tin and get it to go into all of the corners. So it just naturally moves itself into the shape of your baking tin. And then once you're happy that it's in all of the corners, you can lie it down flat and just give it a tiny tap just to make sure it's nice and equal and lay it out. Next, it goes into the center of your oven for around 12 minutes. It's very rare it needs more than 12 minutes. My sponge has been in the oven for exactly 12 minutes. Put a timer on my phone. You can check it's done by using your finger, and it should gently bounce up like it is right now. So the next stage will be to roll it, but in order for that to happen, it needs to be cool. So if you have a cooling rack, you can take your sponge out of your baking tray and you can leave it on the cooling rack to cool down for a few minutes. We can roll it when it's warm, but we can't roll it when it's hot. So just on there to cool down for a few minutes. So once your Swiss roll is a little bit cooler, you've given it 5 minutes to cool down, you can flip it over and you can peel back the greaseproof paper. Just make sure you are peeling it back very carefully. Or if you didn't have greaseproof paper, you've made it straight into your baking tin, make sure you are removing it from the baking tin very carefully so that it doesn't rip or stick. So very gently, I'm just moving a little bit at a time, I'm not just yanking the paper off. Keep it as intact as possible. Now I'm not going to throw away this baking paper because I'm still going to use it. I want to use the clean side, so I'm going to turn it back over. I'm going to put my Swiss roll, I'm going to flip it back on top. I'm going to choose whichever end is my thinnest, so this end is slightly more fluffy than this end. I'm going to turn it around that way. And I'm going to spread my jam. You can use whatever jam you want. You can even use something like Nutella if you want a chocolate Swiss roll. So you're going to spread your jam over. You want to leave about a centimetre gap down the side because when we roll it in a minute, all your jam will just squidge out the side if you do it right to the edges. So you want to just leave a centimetre gap at the side. Once you've spread your filling round, and like you said, left a centimetre border, grab yourself the butter knife, or you can even get a sharp knife and use the blunt end. So I'll do that as well to show you. So don't use the sharp side, use the blunt side to turn it over and just gently dent the first centimetre of your sponge. You're going to use your baking paper to help roll. So we're going to roll, but keep the baking paper nice and tight. As we roll, we want this Swiss roll to be as tight as possible. So I'm pushing down with my fingers, but I'm using my thumb to roll. So I'm pushing down and rolling, pushing down and rolling, pushing down and rolling. So I'm using the baking paper to help me roll until I get all the way to the end. And as you can see, got a neatly rolled Swiss roll. To make it super neat, you can just cut off the ends. Obviously, don't go to waste, you can still eat them. But behind, you should get a really nice super roll of your Swiss roll, and then you can cut your slices for you and your friends and family of your Swiss roll.